Practice of Insight Meditation. Mahasi Sayadaw. Introduction. Of course, no one wants to suffer, and everyone tries to seek happiness. Everywhere in the world, humanity is finding various ways to prevent or alleviate suffering and create peace and happiness. However, their primary aim is only to create physical happiness through material means. In reality, happiness or unhappiness depends on our minds. Yet, very few people think about spiritual development. Those who want to train their minds are even rarer. To satisfy material needs, people often pay attention to trivial matters such as bathing, dressing neatly. They are concerned with earning food, clothing, and shelter. Scientific progress has helped them greatly in improving material life. For example, advances in transportation and communication, medical inventions to prevent and treat diseases. It must be acknowledged that these efforts are very important, but they only help protect and nourish the body. These inventions and successes cannot eliminate or reduce the suffering of old age, illness, family discord, and economic crises. In summary, it is impossible to satisfy human aspirations through material means alone. Only mental training can help people overcome these sufferings. Therefore, an effective method must be found to train, stabilize, and purify the mind. This method is found in the Maha-Satipatthana Sutta, a discourse that the Buddha taught over 2,500 years ago. The Buddha said, "This is the only path for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the destruction of pain and grief, for reaching the right path, for the realization of Nibbana, namely the Four Foundations of Mindfulness." Preparation stage. If you truly practice meditation to attain liberating insight in this very life, you must set aside all worldly thoughts and behaviors during the meditation period. Doing so is to cultivate noble virtues. This is a fundamental step for developing meditation. You must keep yourself pure and moral because morality is the essential step for developing wisdom. You must observe the precepts of a lay Buddhist. For monastics, they must observe the precepts they have received. In a multi-day meditation retreat, meditators must observe the 8 precepts, Upasita precepts: not to kill, not to steal, not to engage in sexual activity, not to lie, not to consume intoxicants, not to eat after noon, not to dance, sing, play music, watch entertainment, wear garlands, use perfumes, or beautify oneself with cosmetics, not to sit or lie on high or luxurious seats or beds. Another point is not to speak or act disrespectfully towards those who have attained high levels of enlightenment, the noble ones. According to tradition, ancient meditation masters often advise you to place your faith in the Buddha, as this will help you reduce panic when unwholesome or frightening images appear in your mind during meditation. During meditation practice, you also need a meditation teacher to guide you, to clearly show you how you are meditating and what results you have achieved, as well as to instruct you when necessary. The main purpose and great achievement of meditation practice is to help you eliminate greed, hatred, and delusion, the 3 roots of all suffering and evil. Therefore, you should strive diligently in meditation with a determination to eliminate greed, hatred, and delusion. Only then will your meditation practice be completely successful. This method of practicing insight meditation based on the 4 foundations of mindfulness, Satipatthana, is a method that the Buddha and the noble disciples practiced to attain enlightenment. You should rejoice because you have the opportunity to practice this precious type of meditation. The following 4 protective reflections or contemplations are also very necessary for you when you begin a meditation retreat. You should reflect on the Buddha, on loving kindness, on the impurity of the body, and on death. First, express gratitude and reverence to the Buddha by contemplating his noble qualities. I pay homage with utmost respect to the Blessed One, the perfectly enlightened One, who is fully awakened, endowed with knowledge and conduct, the well-gone One, the knower of the worlds, the unsurpassed trainer of persons to be tamed, the teacher of gods and humans, the enlightened One, the Blessed One. Then, direct loving kindness to all beings, merging yourself with all species without any discrimination. May I be free from enmity, disease, and grief. May my parents, teachers, friends, and all people and all beings be free from enmity, disease, and grief. May all beings be free from suffering. Reflect on the impurity of the body. which is an unwholesome attachment that most people are prone to. Pay attention to the impure and filthy nature of the stomach, intestines, phlegm, pus, blood, to eliminate thought of attachment clinging to the physical body. Reflect on the fact that everyone is gradually approaching death. This is a beneficial psychological reflection. The Buddha often emphasized that life is uncertain and temporary, but death is certain and unavoidable. The ultimate goal of life is death. The process of life includes birth, aging, illness, suffering, and finally death. When practicing, you can sit in full lotus, half lotus, or with legs not crossed. If sitting on the floor makes it difficult to concentrate or causes discomfort, you can sit on a chair. In short, you can sit in any way as long as you feel comfortable. First exercise. Focus your attention on the abdomen. Remember, it's attention, not looking with your eyes at the abdomen. By focusing on the abdomen, you will observe the rising and falling movement of the abdomen. If you cannot clearly see the movement of the abdomen, you can place both hands on the abdomen to feel the rising and falling. After a while, you will clearly notice the in and out movement of the breath. Note the rising when inhaling and falling when exhaling. Every movement of the abdomen must be noted. From this exercise, you learn the way the abdomen moves. You do not need to pay attention to the shape of the abdomen, but only to follow the sensation, the pressure created by the movement of the abdomen. For beginners in meditation, this is a very effective method to develop the ability to pay attention, concentrate, and gain insight. The longer you practice, the clearer the movement becomes. When insight is fully developed, you will perceive the continuous processes of the psychophysical phenomena through each sense door. Since you are a beginner in meditation, your attention and concentration are still weak, so you'll find it difficult to keep your mind on the continuous rising and falling movements. Therefore, you might think, I don't know how to keep my mind on every rising and falling movement. You need to remember that this is a learning process, so stay calm and continue meditating. The rising and falling movement of the abdomen is always present, so you don't need to search for it. In fact, new meditators only need to simply focus on the two movements of rising and falling, so the practice is not too difficult. Please continue practicing this first exercise by focusing on the rising and falling movement. Never repeat the words rising and falling out loud. Just note them silently. Silent noting will help you easily focus on the object. But if silent noting hinders your attention, you can just observe the movement of the abdomen without noting silently. Breathe naturally and evenly, avoiding breathing too long or too short. Many meditators want to see the rising and falling clearly, so they often breathe deeply or quickly, which will make you tired. Second exercise. While practicing observing the rising and falling of the abdomen, other thoughts will arise, causing you to forget your attention. Thoughts, desires, ideas, imaginations, etc. will appear between the rising and falling. You should not ignore these wandering thoughts or delusions, but must note each one as they arise. When your mind imagines something, you must know that you are imagining and note, imagining, imagining, imagining. When you simply think about something, note, thinking, thinking, thinking. When you ponder, note, pondering, pondering, pondering. When you intend to do something, note, intending, intending, intending. When your mind wanders without paying attention to the rising and falling, note, wandering, wandering, wandering. When imagining or going to place, note, going, going, going. When arriving, note, arriving, arriving, arriving. When thinking about meeting someone, note, meeting, meeting, meeting. When thinking about talking to someone, note, talking, talking, talking. When arguing, note, arguing, arguing, arguing. When seeing images or colors, note, seeing, seeing, seeing. Every time the mind sees or thinks something, note it until it disappears. After it disappears, return to focusing on the rising and falling. You must practice attentively without negligence. When intending to swallow saliva, note, intending, intending, intending. When swallowing, note, swallowing, swallowing, swallowing. If you want to spit, note, wanting, wanting, wanting. Then return to the rising and falling. If you want to bend your neck, note wanting, wanting, wanting. While bending your neck, note bending, bending, bending. When intending to raise your neck, note intending, intending, intending. When raising your neck, note raising, raising, raising. The action of raising or bending the neck must be done slowly. After noting each of these actions, return to the rising and falling. Third exercise. Because you have to meditate continuously for a fairly long time in a sitting or lying posture, you'll feel tired and your limbs will ache. In this case, focus on the area of fatigue and note tired, tired, tired. Note naturally, not too quickly nor too slowly. The feeling of fatigue will gradually decrease and eventually disappear. If the fatigue persists to the point of being unbearable, then you can change your posture. However, do not forget to note wanting, wanting, wanting before changing posture. Every small detail of movement must be noted truthfully and in order. If you intend to lift your hand or foot, note intending, intending, intending. While lifting your hand or foot, note lifting, lifting, lifting. When stretching out your hand or foot, note stretching, stretching, stretching. When placing your hand down, note placing, placing, placing. When your hands or feet touch each other, note touching, touching, touching. Perform all actions slowly to easily note them. As soon as you are in a new posture, you must immediately continue to focus on the rising and falling of the abdomen. If you find the new posture uncomfortable and want to change posture, you must note as above. If you feel itching in a certain spot, focus on the itching spot and note itching, itching, itching. The noting should be natural, not too fast or too slow. When the itching sensation disappears, return to the rising and falling. If the itching is too much to bear and you want to scratch, note wanting, wanting, wanting. Then slowly lift your hand, noting lifting, lifting, lifting. When your hand touches the itching spot, note touching, touching, touching. When gently scratching the itching spot, note scratching, scratching, scratching. When the itching subsides and you no longer want to scratch and want to return your hand, note returning, returning, returning. When your hand returns to its original position and touches your hand or foot, note touching, touching, touching. Then continue observing the rising and falling of the abdomen. If you feel pain or discomfort, focus on that painful or uncomfortable spot. Clearly and accurately note every sensation that arises, such as aching, heaviness, tiredness, numbness, stiffness, etc. Remember that these notings must be natural. Do not be too hasty or too slow. The pain or ache may stop or increase. When the pain increases, do not panic or fear. Just continue meditating. And after a while, the pain will subside. If the pain persists and becomes unbearable, then ignore the pain and focus on the rising and falling. As your meditation progresses, you will experience painful and uncomfortable sensations. You may feel difficulty breathing, a choking sensation, sometimes like being pricked by needles, ticklish as if insects are crawling on your body. You may also feel itchy, painful as if being bitten by something, or shivering with cold. When you stop meditating, these sensations disappear immediately. When you resume meditation, and each time you begin to concentrate, these uncomfortable sensations reappear. These sensations are nothing to worry about. They are not signs of illness, but normal sensations that are always present in our body, but are obscure because our mind is busy with immediate objects. As meditation progresses, our mind becomes sharp and subtle, so it easily notices these sensations. When your meditation level advances further, you will overcome all these obstacles. If you continue and persevere in meditation, you will no longer encounter these uncomfortable sensations. If you lack courage, lack determination, and interrupt your practice for a while, you will encounter them again each time your meditation progresses. But if you encounter these uncomfortable sensations and still remain determined and persevere in continuing to meditate, you will conquer them, and you will never encounter these uncomfortable sensations again during meditation. If you intend to turn your body, note intending, intending, intending. While turning, note turning, turning, turning. Sometimes during meditation, you may notice your body swaying back and forth. Do not be afraid. Do not enjoy it or wish for it to continue. The sway will stop if you focus on it and continue noting, swaying, 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 until it stops. If after noting many times the body still sways, lean against the wall, or lie down for a while and continue meditating. When the body shakes or trembles, also focus and note as above. As meditation progresses, sometimes you may feel a creeping sensation or chill along the spine or throughout the body. This is a state of rapture, a natural outcome when meditation is progressing well. When the mind is settled in meditation, you're easily startled by small noises. The reason is that your mind is now very sensitive to all sense objects. During meditation, if you feel thirsty, note the sensation. Thirsty, thirsty, thirsty. When you want to stand up, note. Wanting, wanting, wanting. And attentively note each action preparing to stand up, then focus on the action of standing and note. Standing, standing, standing. After standing up, your eyes look toward the water. Note. Looking, looking, looking. When you want to walk, note. Wanting, wanting, wanting. Begin to step each step, noting walking, 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 or left, right. You must be mindful in every step from beginning of walking until stopping. When walking leisurely or practicing walking meditation, you must also follow the same noting principles. Try to note the footsteps through 2 actions, lifting, placing, lifting, placing. When you're proficient with this method, note 3 actions, lifting, moving, placing, lifting, moving, placing. When you see or go to the place where water is, note seeing, 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 or looking, looking, looking. When stopping, note stopping, stopping, stopping. When reaching out your hand, note reaching, reaching, reaching. When your hand touches a cup, note touching, touching, touching. When holding the cup, note holding, holding, holding. When dipping your hand into the jar, note dipping, dipping, dipping. When bringing the cup to your lips, note bringing, bringing, bringing. When the cup touches your lips, note touching, touching, touching. When feeling coolness, note cool, cool, cool. When swallowing, note swallowing, swallowing, swallowing. When putting the cup down, note putting down, putting down, putting down. When withdraw your hand, note withdrawing, withdrawing, withdrawing. When letting your hand hang down, note hanging, hanging, hanging. When your hand touches your thigh, note touching, touching, touching. When wanting to turn back, note wanting, wanting, wanting. When turning back, note turning, turning, turning. When walking, note walking, walking, walking. When arriving at the place and wanting to stop, note wanting, wanting, wanting. When stopping, note stopping, stopping, stopping. If standing for a long time, focus on the rising and falling of the abdomen. But when you want to sit, note wanting, wanting, wanting. When going to the sitting place, note going, going, going. Upon arriving at the sitting place, note arriving, arriving, arriving. Turning your body before sitting, note turning, turning, turning. Sitting down, note sitting, sitting, sitting. You must sit down slowly and note every movement of sitting. You must pay attention to each action of your limbs when sitting. After sitting, continue to observe the rising and falling of the abdomen. When you want to lie down, note wanting, wanting, wanting. Then note every action of lying down, leaning your body, supported with your hand, placing your head, stretching your legs, lying. All these actions must be done slowly. Once lying down, continue to observe the rising and falling. While lying down, if you feel pain, fatigue, itching, all must be noted. Note every sensation, thought, opinion, consideration, examination, and every action of your limbs and body. If there is no special sensation to note, continue noting the rising and falling. When feeling sleepy, note sleepy. If you have enough concentration power in meditation, you can overcome sleepiness and feel refreshed. Then continue to observe the rising and falling. If you cannot overcome sleepiness, continue noting the rising and falling until you fall asleep. Sleep is a continuity of the life continuum consciousness or subconscious, similar to the case of the mind at rebirth or death. This mind is very weak and cannot perceive anything. When you are awake, this mind continues to appear between moments of seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, and thinking. But this mind appears very weakly and does not last long, so it is hard to notice. This mind will maintain continuously when you sleep. When you wake up, all thoughts and objects will be perceived clearly immediately. Waking up and daily activities. At the moment of waking up, you must meditate immediately as a new meditator. It is difficult for you to be mindful in the first moments upon waking up, but you must be alert as soon as you remember that you are meditating. For example, upon waking up, if you think about something, you must be mindful and note immediately. Thinking, 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 then continue with the rising and falling. When waking up, you must pay attention to the details of your body's activities. Every action of your limbs and body must be noted mindfully. Upon waking up, do you think about what time it is? If you think about the time, you must note, thinking, thinking, thinking. When preparing to leave the bed, note preparing. When slowly sitting up, note sitting up. When in the sitting posture, note sitting, sitting, sitting. If you sit on the bed for a while before standing up to go, you must focus on the rising and falling, then continue. When washing your face or bathing, you must also mindfully note every detail. For example, looking, gazing, stretching, holding, grasping, warm, cold, rubbing, etc. When dressing, making the bed, closing the door, holding or grasping something, all must be noted mindfully in order. You also pay attention to each action while eating. When looking at the food, note, looking, looking, looking. When scooping the food, note, scooping, scooping, scooping. When bringing the food to your mouth, note, bringing, bringing, bringing. When the food touches your lips, note, touching, touching, touching. When the food enters your mouth, note, entering, entering, entering. When closing your mouth, note, closing, closing, closing. When lowering your hand, note, lowering, lowering, lowering. When your hand touches a plate, note, touching, touching, touching. When chewing, note, chewing, chewing, chewing. When tasting the flavor, note, tasting, tasting, tasting. When swallowing, note, swallowing, swallowing, swallowing. When the food goes down the throat and touches the throat, note, touching, touching, touching. Pay attention to each time you scoop a spoonful of food until you finish the meal. At first, there will be many omissions. Do not worry about that. After a period of persistent practice, the omissions in noting will decrease. When your meditation level progresses to a higher stage, you will be able to note even more details than those mentioned here. Basic walking meditation exercise. Between two sitting meditation sessions, there's a period of 40 to 90 minutes for walking meditation. Walking meditation alternates with sitting meditation to balance energy and the factors of concentration, as well as to avoid sleepiness. You can practice walking meditation indoors or outdoors. During walking meditation, you should walk slower than usual and in a natural way. While walking, you must focus on the movement of your feet. You must note when your right or left foot begins to lift off the ground. Note lifting. When moving the foot forward, note moving. When placing the foot down, note placing. Do the same for the left foot. Just like in sitting meditation, while walking, every wandering thought or sensation must be noted. For example, if you suddenly look at something while walking, immediately note looking, 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 then return to the movement of your feet. Even though the things you see while walking are not related to walking meditation, if you inadvertently pay attention to them, you must immediately note looking, looking, looking. When you reach the end of the walking path, of course, you have to turn around and walk back. When you're a few steps away from the last step of the path, you must note wanting to turn, wanting to turn, wanting to turn. The intention to turn may be difficult to note at first, but as your meditation progresses, you will find it easier. After noting the intention, you must note all the details of the thoughts and actions related to turning. At the last step of the path, you begin to turn your body. Note turning, turning, turning. When your feet move, note in time, lifting, moving, placing, etc. While turning, often due to external temptations, you may intend to look around to see if there is anything interesting. You must immediately note intending, or wanting, then focus back on your steps. Usually, for new meditators, focusing on 3 stages, lifting, moving, placing, is very effective. However, depending on each person's ability, the meditation teacher may advise them to note fewer or more stages. Sometimes, finding slow walking inconvenient, especially when going outside the meditation area, you can walk faster and note left, right each time the left or right foot touches the ground. Noting many or few stages is not important. The essential thing is whether you are mindfully aware in each step or not. Advanced meditation. After a period of meditation practice, your concentration develops, and you can easily follow the rising and falling of the abdomen. At that time, you will notice a time interval or gap between the 2 stages of rising and falling. If you are sitting in meditation, note rising, falling, sitting. When noting sitting, focus on the upper part of the body. When you're lying down in meditation, note rising, falling, lying. If you notice a gap between rising and between falling and rising, note rising, sitting, falling, sitting. If you're lying down, note rising, lying, falling, lying. If after practicing for a while you find that noting 3 or 4 stages as above is not easy for you, return to the 2 stages of rising, falling. While focusing on the movements of the body, you do not need to pay attention to objects of seeing and hearing. When you have the ability to focus on the rising and falling movement, you also have the ability to focus on objects of hearing and seeing. However, when you pay attention to looking at something, you must simultaneously note 3 times. Seeing, then return to the movement of the abdomen. Suppose someone comes into your field of vision and you notice them. You must note, seeing 2 or 3 times, then return to the rising and falling. Do you hear sounds? Are you listening? If you hear or listen, you must note, hearing, or listening, then return to the rising and falling. Suppose you hear loud noises like a dog barking, loud talking, singing. You must immediately note 2 or 3 times. Hearing, then return to the rising and falling exercise. If you forget to note when your mind is wandering to hearing, this can cause you to think or follow them, forgetting to pay attention to the rising and falling. At that time, the rising and falling will become weak or indistinct. In cases where you're caught up in overlapping afflictions like that, note 2 or 3 times. Thinking, then return to the rising and falling. If you forget to note the movements of the body, limbs, etc., note, forgetting, then return to the movement of the abdomen. You may feel that at that time your breathing slows down, or the rising and falling movement is not clear. If that happens and you are sitting, focus on noting, sitting, touching. If you're lying down, note, lying, touching. When noting touching, you do not focus on just one point of the body that is in contact, but on many consecutive points. There are many touching points. At least 6 or 7 points you must focus on. Some of these points are thighs, knees, hands touching each other, feet touching each other, thumbs touching each other, blinking eyes, tongue touching the mouth, lips touching each other. 4th exercise. By now, you've been meditating for many hours. You may start to feel lazy when thinking that you have not made much progress. Do not give up. Continue noting, lazy, before your meditation is strong enough to develop the ability to pay attention, concentrate, and gain insight. You may doubt whether this method of meditation is correct or useful. In such cases, note, doubting. Do you desire or wish to achieve good results in meditation? If you have such thoughts, note, desiring, or wishing. Do you think about reviewing the practice method to reach this level? If so, note, reviewing. Are there cases where you examine the meditation object and wonder whether it is mind or matter? If so, note, examining. Do you sometimes regret not making any progress? If so, focus on noting the feeling. Regretting. Conversely, do you feel happy when your meditation level progresses? If so, note happy. That is how you note each mental state. If there are no thoughts or concepts to note, return to the rising and falling. Conclusion. In an intensive meditation retreat, the meditation time starts from waking up until going to sleep. You need to remember to always practice either the basic exercise or continuous attention throughout the day until night. If you are not sleepy, there is no rest at all. When your meditation reaches a high level of progress, you will no longer feel sleepy even though you have to meditate for many hours. At that time, you can continue meditating day and night. In summary, during the meditation period, you must mindfully note all mental states, whether good or bad. You must also pay attention to movements of the body, whether large or small. You must pay attention to each sensation, whether pleasant or unpleasant, throughout the meditation time. If there is nothing special happening that requires noting, focus on the rising and falling of the abdomen. If you go to do something, for example, going to drink water, you must pay attention to the necessary actions of going. You must mindfully note each step, such as going, or left, right. When you arrive, note standing, holding, grasping, drinking, etc. But when practicing walking meditation, you must note the 3 stages of walking: lifting, moving, placing. Meditators must strive to practice day and night to soon develop concentration to the 4th insight, the insight of knowing arising and passing away, and from there achieve higher insights.